Your Denver Broncos are linked to the ultimate speed demon wide receiver who was just surprisingly cut from his team, a guy who was rumored a lot at the trade deadline who now is available. All of Twitter thinks the Broncos should go nab him, but I'm not so sure. In this video, we're breaking down why I think the Broncos should be rolling with the guys who got them to 9-2, who got them to top 5 in the NFL power rankings, who got them to become a Super Bowl favorite. We're breaking all that down and more. If you're new to the channel, I'm a diehard Denver Broncos fan named Ben, and it helps me in the algorithm a ton. If you like the Broncos, if you would like and subscribe. So we know Sean Payton has taken the best of New Orleans and brought it to Denver, and it's just crazy to me to see how, as New Orleans have dropped off of a cliff, your Denver Broncos have shot to the moon. At the start of training camp, there were 18 former coaches or players who had coached or played with Sean Payton in New Orleans who are now Denver Broncos. That number climbs up to 19 with Lil Jordan Humphreys being here and back on the roster. That is just absolutely wild. And now, a guy who a lot of folks were thinking would be a great trade candidate as New Orleans was trying to sell off wide receivers at the trade deadline, is surprisingly cut from his team. So Brandin Cooks, who was a Biletnikoff winner, which is the award that goes off to the best wide receiver in college football. He went to Oregon State, ran a 4.3 40, just like crazy speed, but he's 32 years old, and he was surprisingly cut from the New Orleans Saints. So we see not only do they move on from Shaheed, they also just surprisingly cut Brandin Cooks, who has made his rounds in the NFL. We're going to break down some of his highlights. But as you can see, here's kind of the sentiment that a ton of people are like, hey, don't let the Broncos pick up Brandin Cooks, because if they do, watch out. Well, I think you already can say watch out with the wide receivers we have. You can already say watch out with the fact that, like, hey, we had to miss Marvin Mims for 2 games, and you still could say watch out. But I'm definitely not going to argue the fact that this dude was an absolute speed demon. I think the one that really points that out here was this clip right here. Him and Drew Brees, I think they had 6 1,000-yard receiving seasons when he was in New Orleans. So obviously Sean Payton is extremely comfortable with him as a wide receiver, and you just see the burners on this dude. Like, he is extremely quick, and his highlight reel speaks for itself. But I mean, I think the fact that he has bounced around a ton, that while he has that resume of, like, yes, he has put up crazy production, he really hasn't had a huge standout season since 2021 that he's made stops. He was in New Orleans. He went to the Houston Texans for a while. He also went to the Dallas Cowboys for a while. And then I think he went to the New England Patriots for a hot second there, and then back to New Orleans. And really, I think his best years are behind him, but it is very interesting to me that, like, Sean Payton has different guys pegged for different roles, and it could be a very interesting combination to bring him back in here. And really, his production in college was probably even more impressive than it was in the NFL. I guess I don't think he ever made a Pro Bowl, but just a wild speedster, and you just see, like, his ability not just in open space, but, like, that ability, as we're seeing here on the screen, to make guys miss. That's probably the biggest distinguishing factor with him and Marvin Mims. I think right now in a race, because Marvin Mims is way younger, I think in a straight line race, Marvin Mims wins, and it's not even really that close. But his ability to evade tacklers when he was at his absolute prime was a very nifty gift that he had. And so a lot of folks are saying, hey, go and get him. Again, fastest 40 time of that entire class. Sean Payton, one of the few times in his career, he actually traded up when he was with the New Orleans Saints. They were pegged to have the 27th pick. He traded up and picked him at pick number 20, which, as we now know, watching Sean Payton, that is not something he typically does. Like this year, like, hey, trade up and go get this dude. He has this draft so scouted out that for him to go and trade up means that he is absolutely head over heels in love with someone. But again, you just look at this year, he's played in 10 games for only 19 receptions for 165 yards, averaging 8.7 yards per catch. And we just played the New Orleans Saints in the preseason. I don't feel like I even remember him popping off in there. We played them last year. And again, I don't remember even hearing his name. You could say he's limited by not having a quarterback who knows how to use him, like Sean Payton obviously would with Bo Nix. So, and again, tons of articles out there about how the Broncos could certainly have a shot at it. What makes us have maybe like it, why this article here, great article by Sports Illustrated, saying that it's kind of a slim chance at getting him, is because he has to clear waivers before he becomes a free agent. And since the Broncos are 9-2, we actually have the last waiver claim in the entire AFC. So every other AFC team would have to pass on him before the Broncos would make a run at him. The waiver wire does not reset like you would think it would, because we know before the Broncos got Mercedes Lewis, we also were trying to get other tight ends, and we did not have any of our waiver wire claims for tight ends picked up. And so that's one of the disadvantages right now, is that like every other team, if they want him, will have a shot at him before we do. And again, I think his best production is behind him, and I could see a world where if he does clear waivers, then he becomes a free agent and he can go wherever he wants. And if he wants to sign on to the Broncos practice squad, we could elevate him 3 times, or if something happens and Marvin Mims gets hurt or Pat Bryant get hurt, we elevate him. That's not a bad idea to me. But I think Vance Joseph popped on an interview with Peter Schrager. Incredible watch. I'll link it in the show notes for this video. And you just hear what makes this Denver Broncos team so different is the culture here in Denver. And just how every single player on this team is not a me-first guy, they're a team-first guy, and they care way more about the production of the team than they care about their own production. And he speaks specifically to Nick Bonito. So just listen to what he said here. He the first 50 seconds of this clip, he's talking about all Nick Bonito's physical traits and how good he is at pass rushing. But he says, you know what his best trait is?
Unselfish. He's so unselfish, man. This kid's a team-first guy all through and through.
So not Nick Benito's could be the best edge rusher in football, and those aren't my words. This is his words.
The passer versus certain people it's the cage rush, right?
He talks here about how the Broncos utilize a cage rush, and essentially you have to rush in a way where you do not let mobile quarterbacks like a Patrick Mahomes, like a Jalen Hurts, like even a Justin Herbert escape the pocket and go and get yards, which means you have to be dedicated in your rush and you can't over pursue. And he said, if Nick Bonito played like Max Crosby or any of those other guys who care about stats, he would have double the amount of sacks he has right now. But he is so unselfish, and all he cares about is other people eating and this defense succeeding. That is such a delicate line to thread right there. When you have a culture, you don't do anything that could possibly mess that up. So now, as we're hearing, Odell Beckham Jr. Is off of his suspension, and he's a free agent, and the Broncos could go get him. The Broncos might be able to get Brandin Cooks. I just think we have such a special chemistry and such a special culture here. I don't want to do anything that could possibly mess that up, because it is extremely rare in the NFL. All you have to do, watching Monday Night Football the other night and just seeing both of the sidelines for the Raiders and the Cowboys are full of a bunch of me-first guys. Guys who are suspended and unable to even, that the first drive of that game, you had CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens who were on the sideline watching, being punished because they were out partying the night before in Vegas. Like, watch Caleb Williams' body language compared to Bo Nix's body language. Watch Marvin Mims or Pat Bryant or Cortland Sutton when they don't get the ball. Like, they care about this team so much more than they care about their own production. We heard Evan Ingram say the same thing in his post-game press conference the other day, that he's been in a lot of stops and a lot of locker rooms in the NFL. There's something incredibly special about this Broncos team, and I think the Broncos have an incredible wide receiver core that we're just going to see more and more unlocked as the year goes on. So I don't want to take any snaps and targets away from Marvin Mims and Pat Bryant and obviously Troy Franklin and Cortland Sutton, because we want these guys to continue to develop. And we know that we have the old reliable veteran in Cortland Sutton, and I feel very confident in our wide receiver room. So let me know in the comments, do you think the Broncos should make a move to bring another New Orleans Saints to the Denver Broncos, or am I right again and the Broncos should hold off on that? Because, I mean, here's the fact, guys. Even on PFF, which we know doesn't really watch the game, it's a bunch of Chris Collinsworth nerds who just try to give Patrick Mahomes any advantage they could have. They already have Bo Nix as a top 13 quarterback in the NFL. And we know he also right now has the most drops in the NFL. So without those drops, you're talking about a top 10 quarterback, which is what Sean Payton said he was going to be, with Troy Franklin being the youngest player on this entire team, and the leading the leading targeted receiver on this team being the youngest player on our team. We are number 5 in the NFL power rankings right now. We are our Super Bowl favorite right now. I don't want to do anything to mess that up. So let me know in the comments, am I way off on there? Would you like to see Brandin Cooks come to Denver Broncos? I feel like we're going to the Super Bowl without him, because Broncos Country, we got a ton to believe in. Give me that Bolitnikoff. I just want it. Let's go.